morning and welcome to our studio. Super happy today. We have Diana David Wood joining our studio today, and I will be having a live podcast with Diana to talk about future proofing your career and life. Diana, you want to say a quick hello to everyone? We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube today.
Wonderful. No, it's great to be here. And after our wonderful lunch, I'm just delighted to bring our forces together to hopefully provide a bit of value and, um, I don't know, optimism into the world today.
Beautiful. For those of you who have not met Diana before, let me just tell you quickly who Diana is. So, Diana is globally recognized as the number two global futurist. She's a renowned international C suite executive coach, futurist, and leadership expert. Diana helps leaders and organizations navigate and thrive in an accelerating future, and she is recognized globally as a pioneer in future proof leadership development. Now, if you have not followed our podcast is called Catch Your Purpose, and you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And from time to time, we invite thought leaders and inspiring CEOs such as Diana to come to our show to help people future proof their career and life. Diana, you mentioned about optimism. How do you see optimism? What is optimism?
That's a really great question. So much of my work has been thinking about what if and what's next, corporate innovation, strategy, etc. But ultimately, what I feel is that when people are afraid and nobody loves change, not even me, they start to fear and they start to shut down and resist and narrow their focus and cling to the past. And so I think the past is important, but a lot of my work is to invite people and give them tools to have a futures mindset so that they can have more hope for the future and a better sense of agency around the future, which is where, to me, the idea of optimism feeds in.
And what do you mean by agency? Just want to unpack this for the audience.
Yeah, I wish there was a better word for that. So that is the feeling that I have some control over my life, in a nutshell, or over my work. And um, people start to feel overwhelmed when they feel like they have so little of that. And so future proofing is giving frameworks and tools and mindsets that help you feel like, well, I can't change geopolitics, but I can change, my own mindset, or I can change my own, physiological reactions to things, or the way that I plan, or even preparing to be responsive to whatever happens.
Thanks, Diana, for sharing insights. I know you prepared a deck. Do you want to share your deck now, or do you want to have a few more questions first before we start?
Yeah, why don't I share it and we'll see what happens?
Great, thank you. Beautiful.
Why not? So, share screen and then we'll tab over to the presentation. So this is something that I've just collected through a future-proof community that I started, and there are three pillars. So I'm going to talk to you about those three pillars. I'm going to ask three questions, and then we can have a quick chat about it. I won't be long. This is a little bit about me, corporate career, etc. These are the people all over the world that make a part of this community. And so when we talk about hope and optimism and agency, one of the things I care so much about is community. And it is by coming together that we can support each other to have more hope, optimism, agency around the future. So I did write a book called Future Proof, Reinventing Work in an Age of Acceleration, and I interviewed hundreds of people. So just to, give you a sense, I just didn't make this up yesterday. This is a competency framework where through the research we found that future focus, purpose led, which I know you love, Erin, storytelling, connection, and adaptability were the five competencies. And then we actually think about how do you then strengthen those through various exercises, etc. So the three pillars that we're going to talk about are one is futures now, like in a changing market. People keep saying to me, what do I focus on and what is valuable? Especially now with generative AI, which is generating even more information for us to metabolize. And the three things are true north, which is really about finding your why, knowing your values, and how to align them with career and life choices. The second is taking those values and then thinking about your value proposition. So crafting a narrative based on this is what's important to me, this is my purpose, this is the way that I manifest it in my work. And then the network. So going back to that community, building a strategic web of opportunity where it's aligned with your future focus. So I work with people sometimes when they're in a transition and what got them here isn't going to get them there. And then of course it's actionable steps. So not having a huge plan, but actually thinking what's the smallest step that I can take to either test my assumption or move myself forward. So the values piece is we review the values, then we review the why behind the values, and then you action the values. Values might be learning, growth, and community, and then how the why behind those values. We work with Simon Sinek, YOS, and the why might be focusing on finding better ways. So better ways or simplifying things or whatnot, challenging the status quo, and being a person who acts in line with those values. And then actioning them might be, if you're better ways and interested in learning, it's focusing on teaching people better ways to work. Challenging status quo might be through thought leadership, creating a community to support people, or consulting to create better ways to work. So, full disclosure, these are my values.
Beautiful.
um,
Diana, I've got a
yeah,
question. When should people think about, if we look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is right at the top of the pyramid. When should people think about their purpose? When they have so many different things going on in their life, they might be worrying about job security. They might be, struggling with their relationships, with their families, with their coworkers. Is there a,
100%.
is there a right timing to think about our purpose?
Well, I've had this conversation many times, and I think that as individuals and also as leaders, you know, there is an element of there is an element where people say, I don't have time for that because I need to focus on getting a job or I need to focus on other things. But I think that the value of that work is the sense of grounding that it can give you that allows you to do those things better, to find a job better. I can say it from my own life. At the times when I've been completely overwhelmed, like I don't have enough money, that's the most important thing. I have to figure it out. Like the energy I brought to that task was one of fear and freneticism and whatnot. But if I just go back and go, okay, why am I doing this? It just connects so much more deeply and allows me to present it in a way that is, I think, connects more with other people. Um, so I think that I don't think your value is like, I was born and I found my value and then it was the same forever. And that's actually one of the things that is important. So understanding your value is it's about the ingredients, like, of course, your family life and your experience and the things that have happened to you, the skills that you build, the character that you are probably born with. But then there's the environment, right? Like where, um, one environment like a school might be a wonderful place to talk about your thoughts and ideas and theories. Like on the front line of war, your value might manifest differently. So context matters a lot. And I think life stage matters. I'm already at the latter end of my work and career. So, but I hope I never stop. So the reality is that, a grape is great for a toddler and fermented becomes wine for a wine connoisseur. So really thinking about like um, persistence, like persistence in my early career meant that I could work really long hours. Maybe persistence now combined with wisdom is the opportunity for me to be disciplined about making space for more strategic things rather than tactical things. So yes, I think that it doesn't have to be purpose with a capital P. So the sense that, the other day I wanted to meditate, for instance, and I was like, I don't have 10 minutes to meditate. I got a lot on today. And so I didn't, and instead I spent 15 minutes scrolling my phone. So, um, yeah, I do think it's important.
And
Agree or disagree, Aaron?
No, I love every hang on to every word that you just share. I want to ask you, how did you find your purpose, Diana? When did that clarity hit you?
I am continually rediscovering it. I found that after I left my corporate career, it was very difficult to know what to tell people because the let me stop sharing for a sec. So the kind of I work for this company, and I've worked for, I worked for the Secretary of State in the US. So it was like, I work for Kissinger. People go, oh, they didn't really know anything about me, but it was a shorthand to say, like, oh, Diana might be interesting or intelligent or whatever. And then when I left my last corporate job, I was like, wow, why would anybody want to talk to me? And so um, part of it is informed by that. So, did I have a purpose before then? Yes. Like when I can look back, I feel like I always wanted, for instance, to help people unlock their potential. Like in college, I was a hall director. I was like, I aspired to be a manager to help people realize their potential in a very Dilbert-esque way. And now later, I still feel like helping people find their potential is a bedrock of it, and in particular finding better ways to work. Um, I just want to help people live better lives where they don't feel so compromised.
Mm, beautiful. I think you just explained the definition of transformative purpose as well. And I don't know if you agree with this, but when I was in that state where I felt stuck, I was looking for clarity about what my purpose was. I thought of purpose as this static thing, but I think in reality, and like you said, our life evolves and our purpose can also change. This is why I added transformative in front of purpose. If we if we stop looking at this as an overnight aha moment, we'll get less stress from not having clarity and in life. And the other point that I think you hit home, which also resonated with me, was I think for the most part of my career, I use my work identity as my life identity. So when my work identity was removed from that system, all of a sudden I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to introduce myself. But if we go to any networking session, we'll find that most people have a tendency to say that, we're an accountant, we're a lawyer. But like fundamentally, who are you and what do you believe in? How do you make the world a better place with more optimism? I think now so much wisdom that you just shared there, Diana. Just want to give it a
Well,
bit
I
more
learned
context.
well from other people. And actually, when I was teaching a business school class on interpersonal dynamics, it was my students who said, um, I want to be able to introduce myself to my new team or my new leadership position or whatnot when I move countries. I want to be able to introduce myself in a way that conveys something of my values and purpose and who I really am. And so that's sort of what led us down the road to, in fact, it was the students who created the personal branding with purpose course, um, which was not part of our curriculum. They just said, we want this. And I said, okay, you design it and we'll do it together. Um, so there's something there. There is, and that is the second thing, which I think is something that catches people up. Like you can be sitting in your, in your home office and your bed going, okay, I found my purpose. Oh, like, yay. But if nobody knows what it is, or if you don't have the skills to communicate it, then
Mm,
that doesn't necessarily help you. Like, let's say you know what it is, and then you become the leader of your team, and they just know your boss, and you're either not friendly or whatever. They don't know anything about you. They don't know about your why. They don't know about your values. And so that was sort of the second pillar, where when I left, literally I was on a board and I thought, oh, now I'm not at Financial Times, so maybe I'll get kicked off the board because I don't have any value without my big corporate brand behind me and my job. And nobody cared. I don't think they cared very much. But it led me on this journey of that. What's your story? And that, what do you do? What's your story? How do you communicate those things? And really, what I like to think about is that it's the stamp that you put on the value you provide. So if we're talking about work, it's like, what I can help you navigate the future on a basic level. There's so many things underneath that, but um, in terms of coaching, for instance, there's so much that I work with leaders on, but ultimately, what is the brand around that? It's my deep curiosity, really, around what's next that I've had my whole life. That makes me different than when you coach somebody or speak to somebody. So having that story and how it manifests in different environments, I think, is also really important.
Mm, mm. What is personal branding to you, Diana, and how important is it to have a strong personal brand in this day and age with AI?
Oh God. I just did a whole talk on that last night, actually, at Google. They AI is making it more important. And so I wrote about this in my book because I realized that actually, in order to have more control over our work narrative, our own careers, that we need to invest in thinking about that, thinking about the foundations. And I can pop up my slides because it's in there, but the foundations and then the stories and the evidence of kind of the values in action, and then the context and sort of what you're telling to the world. And in an age of AI, the issue is that there's just so much content out there. And so people are looking for reality, really. They're
Mm,
looking for a connection to people. So you see in the US that the trust in institutions and large media is declining, trust in individual podcasters like yourself is increasing. People feel like, oh, I kind of get what Aaron's about. I'm going to listen to him, I'm going to trust him. In a way, it's like we wear our bias on our sleeve, because we're people, we're not these faceless, nameless institutions. So I think that's more important than ever in an age of AI, and that I could go on for another hour about that.
I have a very strong feeling when I see ads and content creators advocating people can just do all these faceless brands and start pumping money just by putting out AI content. I absolutely hate that because I feel like the internet, like you said, is becoming a big dumpster, right? Everyone
Mm,
was already getting information overload before the hype of ChatGPT and Gemini and the rest, and it's only gonna get worse. But I think just like anything, once you hit the extreme, it always bounces back, right? So I'm seeing people are going back to physical connections, communities, such as I met the founder of Genie Friends, one of the co-founders of Genie Friends, just last week, and we talked about the importance of just being present at the dining table and not feeling the need to get glued to your phone and check your messenger and just really have a conversation with another human being and just being comfortable with silence, with boredom, and being able to strike a conversation with someone sitting across the table and just give your full attention to them. I
yeah. Well, it's
would love to hear your thought.
interesting. I think that because, in particular, text started becoming, the value of text was going to zero because so much of it was being generated in the early days of ChatGPT and other generative AI models. And we actually tested it because I thought, you know, like if people like it better than they like me, then so be it. And we did 4 newsletters that was written by ChatGPT, and then usually I write all of them. And we had open rates went down, unsubscribes went up, and I was like, well, I guess, you know, let the people decide. So that's one thing. And though I use AI, every generative AI every single day, and we use it a lot in our business, and I talk a lot about it. Um, I've started doing more video because it's just more relatable and it's more real. And I don't, um, I don't, you know, do any whiz bangs video. It's just like talking to the camera. Here's what I was thinking today, walking down the street videos. And I think that kind of, you know, it's almost like deliberate imperfection. Like, it's just me, it's the real deal. Like, let's have more of that.
Going back to personal branding, what would you say is the number one mistake that people make when they are creating their personal brand?
Well, copying somebody else, I guess, is something. And one of the fears I have around AI is if you don't do that step of thinking, like, what are my values? What is my purpose? Then you can go on to like LinkedIn and say, oh, that job looks really cool. Please recraft my CV and everything I've ever done to be like that. And in a way, it's like trying to copy, you know, somebody and be them. And you can learn from people, but like if I go out and try to be Kim Kardashian, like I'm just going to fail miserably. I have to figure out, and it's work to do so, how to do, how to be the best me.
Mm, that's brilliant. Actually, one of the lessons that I've learned from Thomas Higgins, he was the general manager, ex-general manager from Korn Ferry Hay Group. I remember because I've done so much in psychometric assessment, started working with organizational psychologists and HR and people coaches, and I got certified in several assessments. And I remember the question I went to him was, look, I know so much about psychometric assessments. You can give me any assessment, and I can almost guesstimate what sort of competencies you're looking for a particular job. And I'm pretty sure I can pass that pretty easily. I remember what he said to me was very similar to what you just shared, is that you can always fake it. You
Yeah.
can always fake to be someone else. But when you get that job, when you join that workplace, you will not excel. You'll not be happy because you're not being your most authentic self.
Well, that's what I used to tell my MBA students. And, you know, they would say, I said that your MBA will get you the job. My interpersonal dynamics and leadership course will get you the promotion. You know, and hopefully a better life while you're actually in your work, more fun, more authentic connection, more profit, more progress.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I've stolen uh, your slide.
Hey,
You want to
this
go
is
back to
like
your
a
slide?
hybrid format. We should patent it. I mean, I'm happy to keep going on the deck, and maybe it'll give us some structure. So here, let me just have a quick one. And we
I
talked
love
about it.
how
I can talk to slides, or I could talk to, or I could just talk, actually, as you can tell. Um,
I love how agile you are
So here's
and
the
how comfortable
question.
with
More
change.
most important values, right? So everybody listening has to write down your most important values. When we think about what's your story and you were asking about what is a personal brand, to me it's this what I stand for at the bottom, and you know, different exercises sometimes we do. Um, Evidence, like what is the, you know, you can't say like I am a fabulous influencer and not have put the work in to, you know, develop an audience and figure out what they want and serve them. And then the beacon, the sort of simple, scalable earwig or tagline. Um, and this is this putting your stamp on the value you deliver to others. And then there's networking, right? So those are the 3 pillars: true north, i.e., transformative purpose, um, narrative, and network. And I think that people struggle with networking, but networking also in a world of generative AI becomes that much more important. So it's about the connections you build, and people say, you know, now that 70% of new jobs can come through your network. And I don't know, I have gotten every single job that I've gotten. bar Henry Kissinger from networking. So that definitely, for me, that statistic bears out. It's about revealing career possibilities. One thing I see, because I do so much in the future of work, is the machine to machine talking. So you can have like the machine send your resume out to anything that like pings, and it is sent to another machine. And then if the algorithm matches, then great. And you know, people talk about the fact that there are tons of now jobs being posted that are ghost jobs. I think that really speaking to other people, connecting, talking about like what you want to do and what other people's needs are is so important and such a skill to develop. And then, like we were talking about, it keeps your skills sharp because you learn from other people and you learn from sharing your wisdom. So, the challenge, two
So
questions and a
before you move
challenge.
on,
Yeah.
Diana, networking. I know a lot of people struggle with networking, and there's also a bit of stigma around networking. And as you know, and I'm working on my next book on introverts. How can we empower the quiet people to be more comfortable in networking? How can they improve?
So, there are, I just hosted a lunch for technology called Warm Space. So there are interventions that are being done in companies, I would say. So one of them is, for instance, at Google, they pioneered this idea of silent brainstorming, where people will write down in the chat, if it's in Zoom or in a Google Doc, all of their ideas, and it doesn't require you to be the loudest person in the room. The relational intelligence lunch I hosted was about a software that synchronizes with whatever you have and gives everyone prompts and um, 40 seconds to just say hello, to just share how they're feeling, etc., so that there's more equitability around how long you share. Everybody shares the same thing, so there's a comfort there. And then they have been collecting evidence to say, okay, um, what how do you feel before? How do you feel after? In terms of your energy, in terms of your creativity, et cetera. And they're finding that the, developing this space using technology is transformational.
Mm.
So that's one thing I would say. That the thing I do, since I'm also an introvert, who seems to like to talk a lot,
Really,
is
you're an introvert?
borderline. My
Okay.
son is really into MBTI. He's like,
Yeah.
EI, we can't really figure out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I like to speak from the stage so that I don't have to try to meet people, because then somebody's bound to come up after. This is what drives my speaking. Um, what's your tip?
On networking.
Yeah,
I think I will echo on what you just said. Well, I think one of the quickest ways to learn is to find your role model and see how they do it. I think I really didn't have a role model when I first started networking, when I started working for management consultancy. So I would
yeah,
arrive at the venue, and then I would watch all these YouTube videos about, what's a good way to distribute business cards and and to have as many conversations as I can as I could. So I think I got my priority wrong. I was focusing on quantity and not quality. And I think
yeah.
one of the greatest strengths that quiet people can bring to the room and bring to the table is the ability to absorb, to listen attentively, and to ask curious questions. And I never really thought about this until I started the podcast. And what I found is that I can have very long chat. I've had 3 hour chat with people just by listening to to your sharing, and then I'll pick up cues. I'll pick up keywords where, oh, I want to ask more about this topic. You talk about personal branding. You talk about communication. You talk about purpose. You talk about navigating change. And now you're at your later stage of your career. And yeah, so So I think my not really my advice. I think my lesson, just being a quiet person going to a networking event is you can try to be yourself. Like you said, don't copy other people's system, right? Instead of trying to have like 50 conversations with 50 strangers, maybe you just want to have five deep conversations with five people you want to hang out at that venue, and then you'll make
Yeah,
that experience
I
so much
actually
more
make it
enjoyable.
one. When I'm not feeling like talking to anybody, I'm like, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna have one conversation. I'm gonna find one person to talk to. So one of the things that we do in the Future Proof community is we have a challenge, and it's called the 100 Coffees Challenge. So far more than one person, but it's interesting because I used to have master classes and invite famous people on. And so this picture is of Aisha Bursell, one of Fast Company's 100 most creative people in the world, and she came and did a Design the Life You Love. And I didn't want to reach out to her. I had met her briefly in London and thought she was a total rock star, and actually didn't even invite her on the master class. One of my team members did. He was like, "Oh, I saw that she was in, your contact list." And I was like, "Oh, you can't just email her. She's, so special." So she came, she did the master class, we kept in touch. And then when she went to Bangkok, I was like, I'm just going to pop over there and we're going to have lunch together. And she was like, "Oh, wow, great." Um, and fortunately didn't think I was stalking her, but it was an example of, you know, investing in the people that you think are inspiring, and just trying to provide value. And so a lot of people, I mean, some of the people in the Future Proof community are like CEOs of major companies, and they're like, I can't talk to that person. And so we make the challenge, like, what is the one person you'll reach out to for a call, coffee, or connection, right? So that's
Love
my
that.
challenge to everybody who listens to this. One person you can link in, DM me or email me, or whatever, or Aaron. I want it. I want accountability here. So that was really, those are the pillars, and the virtues to stay relevant from my book were experiment, always be doing those small experiments, reinvent because we have to all the time. What are the adjacencies? What are the things that I can grow into? Collaborate, because I just feel like we can't solve the world's problems as individuals. And focus, start the discipline of how am I going to focus? What will I focus on? You don't need to know everything. So that was it. And then actually, people kept saying, what is like, where do I start? What are the most important things? So I did a 11 checklist, yes or no. And it's just like, do I have people I can call at 3 a.m.? So even though futurist is like, oh, what's the technology in 2050? So much of my work in companies is really heart centered and about purpose and about connection. And that is what's going to craft a life that can allow us to build the best possible futures for the best possible people. So there you go. That's my spiel.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today, Diana. And if you're interested to connect with Diana, I think she's very active on LinkedIn, and you can find all the contact details there, and then we can also share it after our chat as well. Communication, Diana. I know you've spoken on big stages, TED, and you're a frequent speaker for corporates. How did you build up your communication skill? Yeah, and you also mentioned that you identify yourself more on the introversion spectrum. How did you, yeah, how did you get there?
Mm. So I wasn't one of the, kind of approved speakers in my corporate job. Um, So I didn't really do a lot of speaking until I left, and kind of chanced into it because I had left and I was thinking about all the transformative part of transformative purpose. And TEDx had something and their theme was crossroads. And one of my friends says, "Oh, this is great for you. You're at a crossroads. I'm going to nominate you." And I thought, okay, that'll be fun. And then I was selected, and I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. And it got quite personal, actually. And then I was terrified. I was terrified pretty much the whole time. But I had these wonderful people who kind of taught me and opened up what it means to connect with an audience. And so I did that talk in 2016. And then corporates were asking me to talk to them, talk to their people. And so I did a few of those, and I didn't think that much about it. And then when I did my book, and maybe you can relate to this, the way that you sell your book is like practically on an individual basis. You're like, hi, did
Can't
you know
agree
I
more.
wrote? So that was in
Can't agree more.
2019, and I was like, I'll speak anywhere to anyone, and so I and it just kind of hit right. It was about future proofing. It was 2019. I probably did 3 talks a week, um,
Jeez.
literally.
In
And in
person.
fact, I was just at a party where somebody said, "Oh, I remember I got that email. I didn't really know who you were, and you were telling me to buy your book." Yeah, so I started doing that. At the end of the year, I was like so exhausted, I could barely stand up. And I said, I
Oh.
can't do this anymore, but I'm really bad at saying no. So maybe I'll just charge for it and then people will go away and and everybody will be happy. I'll feel like I didn't disappoint anybody, etc. And then they started actually paying me money for it. And then I was like, okay. And then it was sort of, so I kept raising the rates because I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And
Mm.
and then it kind of evened out. And then I fell in love. It's another storytelling. It's like writing a book for 30 minutes from the stage. And I never knew that about myself. I'm so surprised that I love doing it, but it is just so much fun. And I love the data that I have to research. I'm doing one for a tech company who's invited me back again. And it's like, thinking about the human element, all the tech trends, and then how they combine to make people in the audience think, hmm, actually, I could approach this differently in a way that works better or just opens their mind a little bit. It's like Pilates for their imagination.
So many things I could relate to your entrepreneurship journey and having spent the majority of your career working for big corporates. Advice to entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who aspire to become a public speaker like yourself or an author. What would you say to these people? From maybe the biggest lesson you've learned or biggest mistake you've learned from your journey, that if you had a choice that you could tell your younger self again, do not waste time on this, what would that be?
Well, first, I would say it's really hard. Um, so, it always seems like you get all the flexibility and, I literally wake up and go, if I want to eat today, then I have to go make something happen. And that is a mindset shift that a lot of corporate folks struggle with, and I still struggle with today. But the other one is I I don't know. I did so many things. I'm a learn by doing person, which is part of why I did Future Proof. I was like, oh, like, it was sort of like, what are all the mistakes people make? Well, they feel like they have to do it their own way, which was totally me. And then I realized, actually, there's all these like other people who've done this. Um, they um, they kind of reinvent the wheel. Um, I think for me, even now, I'm not, I don't think strategically all the time. It's when I did a book, I was like, oh, I should do a book, and then I didn't realize you're supposed to build a platform and market it, and all these things that I've done now for my next book.
Tell, tell me
Um,
about it. That's my
so
least
go
favorite part.
right, like so go find somebody who's done it, or go sign up for a class because a lot of these things are quite methodical and it is work and it requires process and strategy and dedication and discipline. Um, And so those are things that I wouldn't underestimate.
Mm, mm, yeah. There's so many different ways to learn, like you said, right? We can learn by reading, we can learn by listening, and we can learn by doing it on our own and making all those mistakes and knowing what to improve next time if we were to do the same thing again. Like I've written a few books, and every time I learn a different lesson. My intention of how I got into writing was a little different. It wasn't really trying to make money. It was more something that I was trying to make up, I think, to myself and to the next generation. But yeah, as I write more and more, every time I learn something new, and I look back and I was like, oh, I wish I'd done that. Wish I'd known about that. But then that
Yeah.
also gives me the motivation to be 1% better. And as James Clear said in his book, Atomic Habits, if you keep investing in this 1% incremental improvements, you'll be 37 to 38 times better by the end of the year. So yeah, but like
I
you
would
said, there's so many
say,
different ways to learn. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
and I
kind of like building on what you're saying about different ways to learn, I would say find your people. Like
yeah,
that is what makes this journey not lonely, because it can be, and like having people that you can bounce ideas off of or who are saying, hey, I met somebody that you would probably should meet. And that kind of thing, I think, is really keeps your purpose front and center, and it keeps your inspiration, in the
yeah,
celebrate the wins and like, support when you have the losses.
yeah, yeah. And I need to do a special call out, shout out to Karen Seymour as well. Karen actually actively advocated that I should reach out to you, and that was like a couple of years ago, and it finally happened. So just want to say thank you, Karen Seymour. Karen.
That's who I was thinking about when I said that. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
that it's so lovely, and I think when I look back, because I've been out of my full-time corporate role for 9 years now, and when I look back at the things that I really value, it is the opportunity to really do the things that I'm curious about and provide value, but it's the connections that I've built, and the people that I have shared my journey and shared their journey along the way that I feel so blessed by. So it's quite a wonderful opportunity.
Diana, I just want to say thank you so much. And I've got one last question for you. And I ask this question to every single guest who comes on the show. If you if you had a magic wand on you and you could ask the audience who is listening a self reflection question, what's that one question you would ask the audience who might be listening right now? Something to reflect on.
Well, I've already asked them two questions in the challenge, and I think it goes back to that. Um, what are your top three values in this moment, and how are you going to bring them to the world?
What are your top three values and how are you going to bring them to the world? Beautiful. So,
Hmm.
Diana, just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us this morning and sharing your wisdom. And for those of you who are interested in getting Diana's book, where can they get them?
You can get it on Amazon. That's the easiest place. Or you can go to dianawoodavid.com, and I believe that there's links to all of the different places it's available.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, that's pretty much concludes what we want to discuss this morning. We talked about so much from finding your purpose to. Well, I'm going to use your language here. Let's see if I can remember. So there are three things that Diana covered today. The first one is your north, yeah, North Star.
Yep,
The second one is your narrative, and the third competency is building on your network. Those are the
that's right.
three pillars Diana uh, Diana covered today. If you want to learn more about her again, you can check out her book and connect with her on LinkedIn as well. So, and also one last thing, if you haven't followed us, please follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us under Transformative Purpose or Catch Your Purpose podcast. Cool. All right,
Thank you so
Diana.
much, Aaron. You're
It's been
amazing. Keep doing your
no,
wonderful work, and always wonderful to have a conversation with you.
right back at you, and I'm looking forward to this new relationship that we're gonna embark on in 2025.
Yay!
Woo-hoo. All right. Have a good day and have a beautiful weekend. See ya. See everyone. Bye. Okay, I think I